Hi, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. We have a lot to get to today. Welcome to the May edition of Show and Tell here at Future Snoops. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, we do this monthly, the first Wednesday of every month. It's just a chance for some of our creative team around the world to gather together, share some things that are currently inspiring us. This month, we have a really special edition of Show and Tell. For those of you that came last year. This is when our team that went and attended Milan Design Week are going to go through some of their findings and the activations they loved most. So it's really exciting. We want to leave plenty of time for the webinar. So let's go ahead and just move through some of our housekeeping slides here. Um, of course, we love to hear from you throughout the webinar. Let us know what you are loving. If you have any questions, please feel free to use the comment box. Just be sure to choose everyone in the pull down so that both attendees and panelists can see your question or your comment. And just as a reminder, we'll always be sharing with you the recording of today's webinar in the next few days. So don't feel the need to write down links. We'll give you everything that you need, including everything that's shared in today's presentation. If you missed any previous month's show and tells, you can find them on our YouTube channel. Or if you're a client of Future Snoops, you can find them under the webcast portion of our website. I'm going to quickly just turn it over to Ellie from our marketing team to go over a couple of upcoming events that we'd like to invite you all to. Hi, Ellie.
Hi, Michael. Hello, everyone. So yes, we've got two exciting events coming up this May that I want to quickly spotlight. So first up, on the 14th of May, we are hosting the Future of Retail, a webinar sponsored by Future. We'll explore how shifting consumer expectations are changing the ways brands show up, sell, connect, and grow. So join our VPs of women's wear and menswear, Melissa Moylan and Michael Fisher, who's also your show and tell host, as they unpack key insights from our annual report of the same name. And then on the 15th of May, we are teaming up with our friends at Moy in New York for an exclusive evening of insight, connection, and bold thinking. So we'll dive into how top brands and thinkers are reclaiming human perspective and why standing out matters more than ever. So to register for the webinar or submit your interest for the in-person event, head to futuresnoops.com/events or just click the resource button in your Zoom toolbar. But that's all from me. Back to you, Michael, to kick off the May show and tell.
Great. Well, I'm going to sit back and enjoy everything with everyone else. I'm going to turn it over to our director of visionary, Hallie Spradlin, who is going to kick it off with Milan Design Week.
Yeah. All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this special edition. We're very excited to revisit this week. As Michael said, I'm Hallie Spradlin. I'm the director of Visionary, and I'm joined by Kristen and Peter, who I'll let introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. My name's Kristen. I'm the director of Home and Lifestyle, and I'm excited to walk through what we saw at Milan Design Week today.
Hi everyone, I'm Peter Keshkish, Youth Strategist here at FS, and I'm really excited to be here with you all.
Yes, so we're about a month out from our time at Milan Design Week. So this is a really fun refresh and reunion for our team. So just a kind of some overview. During the week, we covered collectively about over 500 exhibitors and activations. There were about 70 square miles, which I Googled and hope is correct, throughout the city of Milan. So suffice to say that it's been a jam-packed week full of inspiration. So we hope that that is conveyed through this condensed version today. So we've broken our presentation into a few main buckets. So we'll get started with some kind of overarching home and lifestyle trends. And I'll pass it to Kristen to get us started.
Thanks, Hallie. So I wanted to start today by showcasing some of my favorite finds from Alcova. because that was our first stop at Milan Design Week. And this is a fair within Milan Design Week that spots a lot of emerging talents and designers. And unlike traditional trade fairs, Alcova embraces raw and unique spaces to host their show. So as you can see from the images here, it's just a really cool space in general, but we also saw some really incredible designers and brands. I want to highlight 3 of them today. The first being Sten Studio. Their Cosmic Resonance exhibition was a really captivating exploration of cosmic symbolism and material craftsmanship. And each of the totems and tables that were on display were an abstract representation of celestial elements, which I thought was really cool. And they really evoked the energy of the cosmos through stone and form. So the totems, with their towering presence, really drew inspiration from planetary alignments. So really fun exhibition. The execution of this was incredible. The materials ranging from rich volcanic stone to luminous crystals were chosen not only for their aesthetic qualities, but also for their deep connection to the natural world. The next one I wanted to highlight is the Touch with Eyes exhibition, which you'll see in the middle image there. Again, it was a captivating exploration of material contrast and poetic craftsmanship. So the installation showcased a series of pieces that combined the organic fragility of these seashells with the industrial strength of steel. So each piece was meticulously crafted through a process that began with collecting seashells during the winter months. And the shells were then sorted by size and color and carefully cleaned and assembled into these really beautiful compositions that kind of resembled jewelry. But they were set against these robust steel frames, which was really beautiful. The juxtaposition of these translucent, shimmering shells against the stark, angular steel created this harmonious balance between softness and strength and nature and industry. And then lastly, Studio Lugo's series was unveiled and paid homage to rich craft traditions. So this drew inspiration from regional techniques in ceramics, metalworking, woodworking, embroidery, and quilt making. And the series reinterpreted these age-old practices with a modern design context. So the exhibition featured a series of designs where delicate natural components were juxtaposed with these robust man-made structures. And the materials used here were hand-brushed horsehair, lustrous Kitnu fabric, richly grained veneer, and polished stainless steel. So this contrast really highlighted the studio's ability to harmonize those opposing forces. So overall, we're sensing a theme of opposing forces, and it was demonstrated all throughout the show and these exhibitors. We really saw this juxtaposition of material, form, concepts, and each of them further emphasized the contrast between the old and the new, the natural and the industrial. So if you go to the next page, I also wanted to highlight something else that was on display at Alcova, which was Marcin Rusak's Ghost Orchid. So this one was a hauntingly beautiful mediation on impermanence, material innovation, and the life cycles of design. So it was set within this atmospheric glasshouse, which was actually once one of Europe's largest white orchid cultivations. And the installation felt like a poetic reclamation of space. So these 3D printed sculptures, which were crafted by biodegradable PLA, were inspired by the meticulous process of flower breeding. And these forms were designed to decompose over time. And it's accelerated by custom bioreactors and enzyme bacterial systems. but this dynamic living exhibition challenged visitors to really consider the tension between preservation and decay, and prompted questions about what we choose to protect and what we allow to return to nature. Overall, I just really loved this setting, which really helped to amplify the experience here. Light filtered through these aged glass panels, and we saw it was enhanced by fog, which really just hinted at that hauntingly beautiful atmosphere.
Yeah, it was also really exciting, this piece, because we've used this artist so many times in our reports. We're always so inspired by his work. So to see it in person was really, really exciting. So our next one is L'Appartamento by Artemist. So this has been one of our favorite spaces to see during Milan Design Week. And as typical for a showcase like this, the apartment was staged at a beautiful palazzo. It was Palazzo Donizetti. So within this space, 6 design studios each took a different room to uniquely show their interpretation of the beauty, the uniqueness, and the creativity of Italian craftsmanship. So we all 3 visited this together, but I pulled in some of our favorite rooms. So on the top image, the foyer is by the Australian decorator Simone Haag. I just really loved the pops of colors that complemented the ornate architecture here. And then the chair next to that, which is so beautiful, it was featured in the reading room. Also moving to the bottom row, in the desk corner that you see, it's like a little like mini room, and it's off of the bedroom. I'm absolutely obsessed with this little ideal work from home setup. And then also on the far right, that Venetian gilded mirror, that was one of many in this space, and that was also featured in the bedroom, but really, really beautiful. And then back to the middle, this is the grand salon here. So this space was super inviting, really beautiful, really ornate, so many amazing, even just like floral concepts, I think complemented the space really well. But I want to speak mostly about my favorite room, my personal favorite room, which was the entertainment room that you see in the middle there. And this was by 1508 London. We actually had a chance to speak to the curators who were there, and they said it was inspired by this kind of old school members club, but it was a little bit more eclectic, also a bit non-exclusive, and each piece was just drenched with so much joy and personality and richness. And their goal was to create this space that becomes both a place to foster meaningful conversation, but also inspire creativity. I really loved the conversation couch in the middle. There's so many different mix of these gorgeous colors and surfaces. But every detail here and just in the whole apartment was perfect. We could have spent hours just scouring there, but these are some of our highlights from this showcase.
All right, so I'm going to continue the apartment showcase theme because I think we could all agree that they were true highlights for our team throughout the week. They were these thoughtfully designed spaces that offered not just a look at the design, but they evoked feeling. They were sensorial and immersive. They really helped to pull us into these narratives that were told through color, material, light. And one of the standouts for me was the Muto apartment, which delivered a masterclass in color application, as you could see here. So every single room was drenched in a considered palette, really helping to evoke mood and emotion through tone and saturation. One hue that caught our eye and we were really excited about in particular was celery juice, which we'll touch on even further later on in today's presentation. But it's this soft yet invigorating green. That's actually one of our anchors for Spring Summer 27. But it's really just this fresh, modern, quietly optimistic shade. And it's perfectly aligned with the mood that we're feeling for this season. But overall, loved this apartment. It was really fun to walk into each room and not really know what you're going to see next. And then the last apartment that I will be talking about today is the Bacci apartment. It was a stunning display of quiet luxury and sensorial design yet again. So from the moment you entered, you were really enveloped in this atmosphere of calm and luxury. Light played a leading role here, as you could see on the right-hand image. Their signature sculptural lighting cascaded dramatically down this central staircase, and it really responded to your movement as you took each step. So I really loved that detail. Overall, the interplay of shadow and glass and richly textured materials overall created a cinematic experience throughout the entire apartment. It was dreamlike, it was tactile, it was deeply considered, and it was definitely a reminder of how powerful design can be when every detail is tuned into the senses.
Okay, when I stepped into this space in Milan, I have to say I immediately made a note to myself to share with you all when this webinar comes around. The Boon Room showcase was truly major. They turned a secret bank vault into a beautiful design space in the heart of the city. That was a really beautiful balance between contemporary furniture and lighting, showcasing their new collections, with also some pieces from the Boon Editions Parisian gallery showcased here. In their own words, the 700 square meter former bank was transformed into a vault of visionary ideas, an immersive space where past and future, finance and creativity converged. And the chrome accents, this beautiful, vibrant red that ran throughout the diffused light, and of course, these plush contemporary seating and tables. It was really just such a vision to see in person. We wanted to bring that to your eyes today.
So sorry about that. So everywhere I turned during Milan Design Week, there was exquisite glass. It really stole the show as a key material call out, especially at Euroluce, which was the lighting festival. So I really made it a point to seek out lighting, and I was met with some of the most breathtaking chandeliers I've ever seen. They were true works of art. They were these handmade masterpieces in these radiant, unexpected colors, where every curve and facet felt deliberate. The level of detail was just astonishing, and they really became almost otherworldly. But glass was not limited just to lighting. We really saw it all over Milan Design Week as this really beautiful sculptural material. And we saw it from decor to lighting to accessories, including this striking presentation at Dior, where glass was elevated into something sculptural and sublime. This renewed focus on transparency, color, and craftsmanship really gave the entire week a sense of luminous sophistication overall. Just really loved what we saw being done with this material overall. So I wanted to call that out.
So this next exhibition is Saint Laurent, which presented Charlotte Perriand in collaboration. So this exhibit was curated by Anthony Vaccarello, and it was a tribute to the timeless craft and groundbreaking modernist design of the architect and designer Charlotte Perriand. So this collaboration honors both heritage and modernity and celebrates the influence in design by making it more accessible to wider audiences. So this exhibit featured designs from Charlotte Perriand between the years of 1943 and 1967 that previously only existed as either prototypes or sketches, but for here they were meticulously reproduced as these full-scale editions for the first time and were displayed. So very exciting to be able to see this. I'll walk through some of the pieces, and there's a lot of French in there, so I'm going to try to go back in the recesses of my French classes to pronounce them correctly. But the first piece here is called La Bibliothèque Rio de Janeiro. So it's a bookcase that she originally made for her husband to display books and artwork. And it's so beautiful, but I don't know if you can tell really from the image, from the scale, but it's absolutely massive. It took up so much space, just an incredible piece of design, so meticulous and just grand. But I really loved it. The second piece, the middle one, is the stunning table called La Table Millefeuille, which was originally deemed too complex to manufacture because it's actually composed of 10 superimposed layers of contrasting wood in these concentric circles, and each layer of wood is unique and kind of looks differently based on the natural variations. Absolutely stunning, even the chairs, and kind of creating this lounge effect. And then finally, the video you'll see here is La Banquette de la Résidence, which is it was originally designed for the Japanese ambassador in Paris in 1966. But it's this monolithic 5-seater sofa, so stunning. And Perryon also worked with the Japanese architect Junzo Sakakura on this exceptional piece, which again, it was so incredible to see in person, but this exhibit was definitely a highlight of the week for me, and being able to kind of see the meticulous craft in these designs being rebrought to life and being shown for, again, a wider audience. So very fun. And then the next is the Hermès exhibit. So we spoke about this last year, but every year it seems that more and more luxury fashion brands seem to be expanding into home and creating showcases during Milan Design Week. So for Hermès, their installation surrounded the question of what makes an object, to which they proposed that to design an object, to make it, a box is needed. So you can see that the displays here are kind of these really blank white boxes that were built into this beautiful space, which encased the collection, and it was surrounded by these halos of color. So it felt kind of like this pristine museum quality, but still brought a lot of life to it. So within each vignette of those boxes, the space was like displaying these works of art, but they were the home objects. So from this beautiful like porcelain pieces to these leather trimmed vases to the prismatic glass table that you see in the middle, it really allows the objects to come alive, and also just proves that an object can be an emotion, because as you're walking through, it seems kind of bare, and you would peek around the corner and see this beautiful object in this box, and it really made us feel something. So we really loved this exhibit. Passing Peter.
All right, next up is the collaboration between USM and Human Race. USM and Human Race brought an immersive installation that saw the bathroom as a holistic dimension for well-being. This is where the sort of day's routines really became rituals. If you're familiar with the USM Holler, its sort of iconic style was definitely the center stage here. Each of the modular pieces used to create this new concept in this signature green that feels familiar for the Human Race brand, if you're used to their beauty packaging. Of course, during Milan Design Week this year, there was such a focus on human design. And so the North Star of this installation was really the connection between design and the human experience. So that signature Human Race green was, of course, really beautiful to see in person. And I do believe I found my dream bathroom set up for one day, but it was really gorgeous to see how the idea of modularity really sort of transcended beyond like the fixtures, and even just like small little sort of like home accessory elements were built into the installation. So I believe some of the pieces are already available for sale for anyone that's interested. And then moving on to our next mention here, which is Loewe's teapots. Loewe's craft focus was really mirrored in their Loewe teapots showcase during Design Week. The emphasis here was on highlighting the cultural significance of the art of tea making. So Loewe basically commissioned 25 artists and artisans to reimagine the teapot. And what was really interesting is we saw such a diversity of technique, of different craft techniques, from weaving to various surface treatments that were applied. And all of these craft techniques were traditional in one way or the other, whether it was working with porcelain or stoneware or a variety of glazes and textures. The emphasis was really on how each of these artisans kind of reimagined the piece. Even just the space where they presented them was really interesting. It was super vast and dimly lit. So as you can see in the middle image here, so the simplicity of the art of tea making was really what echoed in the space. I feel like in general, this exhibition really spoke to that pause that consumers and, well, all of us are really craving, and really tapped into that slow living conversation that we've identified here at FS and really continue to see longevity for.
All right, so moving into our next kind of section, we really wanted to break out some color trends that we saw throughout the week, because I think it was interesting speaking to a lot of people and also just seeing it confirmed, is that there was so much color, and it was not only just infused in many different types of products and designs, but also that many designers spoke and specifically cited color as a driving inspiration for their collection. So I think this aligns really nicely with what we feel so strongly about here at FS, particularly now, but how color really holds so much power to drive emotion and narrative. So this first page, I just wanted to kind of pull some examples, some of many of people being really intentionally bold with their use of color. And then we're also going to follow and kind of confirm some of our forecasted colors as early validation for how they're showing up in the home and interior space. But really loved all of these examples, especially similar to the Muto apartment that Kristen spoke to. The Marie Claire house also kind of divided each room by color, which I thought was just such a fun way to experience design. And then here's also page to illustrate that while painting and decorating an entire room in chartreuse might not be feasible, some pops of color were still showing up in really fun and unique ways. I particularly love this green faucet that I saw at Apartamento Spagnolo, and also just kind of different pipings and trim accents as well. And then here's also just a page to show this recurring combination. We kept seeing it pop up everywhere in various spaces. So this deep burgundy paired with this kind of electric citrus orange, just a really fun kind of occurrence that we wanted to call out as well. But I'll dive into some color confirmation. So for those who are clients, you'll recognize these colors as our recently posted Spring Summer 27 anchor colors, but we saw some early confirmation during the week. Starting with pickled green, we saw this across so many different materializations from lacquer to marble, but my personal favorite was again at the Marie Claire house. It was this whole bedroom that was draped in pickled green that made it feel so luxurious. And I think that we've spoken to the versatility of this color, and I think that this is a really great illustration of that. The next, again, is celery juice, as Kristen already mentioned, but I have to be honest, this was maybe the most shocking color to see so much of during the week. So the first was the Tacchini booth at Salone. It was painted fully in celery juice, but it felt like such a cool and a modern, but also really comforting and unique way to add color into a space. But I'm really happy to see this showing up in home, because I wasn't one that I was expecting to see so much of, but I loved, I think it's such a fun color and shows that people are really thirsty for it. No pun intended for celery juice, but and then next is spilt milk. So this is, of course, one of our neutrals for the season, but this slightly yellow undertone version of an off-white was really interesting to see in so many different tonal variations. I particularly loved the glossy lacquered applications here. So really beautiful and kind of shows that you can bring dimension to such a neutral color. And then the last anchor color we wanted to confirm was Sunkissed, the deliciously burnt red, the slightly orange brown undertones, but again, showing up in so many versatile materials. It's such a beautiful update to maybe traditional neutrals, even if you wanted to add more warmth into the space or add something with a little bit more zing. So I'll pass it to Kristen to go through some more colors.
Yeah, so I wanted to highlight a few more colors that I saw everywhere. The first being Overripe Banana. And Emily, I just saw your comment about Butter Yellow. Well, in the upcoming seasons, we're definitely going to see yellows get a lot more vibrant, sun-drenched. They're just going to be really bright and cheerful going forward. This was a color that we saw all across categories, from upholstered seating to decorative accents. It offered an immediate burst of optimism and energy to every space that it inhibited, whether used as a bold statement or as a playful accent. This yellow really injected a sense of fun and lightheartedness to the assortments. So it definitely speaks directly to a lot of the conversations around cultivating joy and emotional uplift in the home that we've been having lately. We're definitely seeing that this ethos is increasingly driving design directions, and it's really resonating with people and how they want to feel in their spaces. Another color I saw a lot of was crystallized lilac. So we're definitely seeing a lot of purples come into play for the home. It's interesting because I didn't expect to see this so much within Euroluce, within the lighting category. Color typically takes a backseat to form and function in that category. So its presence in lighting design really felt fresh and unexpected, and it helped to lend a gentle, ethereal glow that really helped to soften some of these sculptural fixtures, like you see in that middle image. That was one of my favorite lighting pieces that I saw, but it was really seen across categories all throughout the show. Another favorite of ours was Black Jam. This one was very sensual and smoldering. It really brought a sense of decadence and indulgence to every category, from the richly glazed tiles that you see here to plush velvet upholstery and high gloss finishes. With its deep red and purple undertones, Black Jam really captures the essence of crushed berries. It's dark, it's fragrant, it's full of emotional intensity. It's really this color that lingers, and it really makes a bold statement within the home. My favorite interpretation was this patent leather chair. Its slick, almost edible finish perfectly encapsulated that sticky, sweet richness that really defines the color, in my opinion. Then we have Frosted Mint. This was everywhere. I could not fit nearly as many images on this page as I wanted to showcase all of the categories that it appeared in. But you could see from softly tinted glass and lacquered surfaces to upholstery and ceramics. This color was everywhere, and it brought a crisp, cool breath of freshness to this season. And it really reflects a growing appetite for hues that soothe the senses while still feeling modern and optimistic.
Awesome. Now I'll kick it over to Peter, who's gonna walk us through most of our emerging talent finds.
All right. This is such a fun conversation. I feel like, especially when in Milan, our sensors are always tuned to snooping out the new voices in design. Starting with Liliana Mészáros, who presented at Budapest Select. Mészáros's primary use of the material wood naturally reveals the passing of time through visible decay, really sort of solidifying the designer's key focus on timelessness and stillness in the face of constant change. What you can see here in front of you is the Lani chair, which encapsulates the artisan's wisdom of making the piece best described through this handmade feel that really invites further exploration through touch. What I loved here is the narrative storytelling through the woodwork that really drives newness here. For example, these almost peak-like patterns that come through in the clashing stained wood from the woodwork that actually hints at the designer's love for mountaineering. And then you also get that sort of stripped back simplicity and that really beautiful geometric attention with the actual form of the chair that really contextualizes the designer's background in the field of architecture. So definitely a key highlight from Budapest Select. And then moving on to Avau, who is a emerging fragrance house. They actually had an installation at Alcova, and they really took an experimental approach to displaying fragrance. They basically dreamed up this almost like laboratory-like environment through scene setting with props. So you had some of these, like the tubing that you can see there, And basically each of Avau's signature scents were diffused through what I would describe as these like bent mirrored plates, essentially, like almost cones. And they really invited the attendees to lean in and observe the notes of the fragrance while they're looking at their own reflection in these cones. So within the sort of Avau universe, you really got this sort of dichotomy of like scent and self-reflection that was really beautifully shown through this installation.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in here because we all experienced this one together. It was so
Yeah.
cool, but I think it also spoke to there was so much use of fragrance and other sensory elements within like all the installations at Milan Design Week, even though this one was a fragrance brand, but even ones that weren't were still incorporating it in their space to kind of really elicit that like connection and emotion and feeling that I thought was really cool. But yeah, I loved this and I want one of their perfumes very badly.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And same, they're definitely on my radar for good now. But moving on to Rich Ivar, who was presenting at Delvis Unlimited. So the pieces shown here really fed into this overarching theme of items for the home that really provide that sensorial boost. So what's really interesting here is that all of the interiors were really sort of approached through the lens of sculpture. The use of the material here was really interesting. What you see in front of you is rubber furniture, which I've personally never seen before, as well as hostware and home accessories. So the ideas shown here were presented at Delvis Unlimited's Theater of Things. That was the name of the exhibition, where the pieces were shown engaged in dialogue, styled together, really to evoke the visitor's curiosity. So the chair is called the Slug Chair, and it's actually super, super heavy because it's basically cast in solid urethane. And it really creates this like sensorial finish that we were obsessed with. For the actual hostware, they had some really beautiful flatware where like spoons and knives and forks, they all had this urethane setting on the handles that we actually had the pleasure of like holding and it's kind of exploring through touch. That was really, really interesting. And then moving on to Rory Noble Turner, who was showing at Isola Design Gallery. Isola Design Gallery is one of the FS team's absolute favorite hotspots for spotting emerging talents, and definitely a must-see if any of you ever attend Milan during Milan Design Week. So the 6th edition of the Isola Design Gallery really celebrated the sort of unique and handcrafted products, and they had a key emphasis on collectible design and design that really tells a story. So that narrative storytelling was really present across like everything that they exhibited. But what we loved is their attention to diverse lifestyles. And what you see here is the June chess set that was developed by Rory Noble Turner in collaboration with Sandhelden, a design studio that specializes in 3D printed architecture. So what you get here is basically like technical precision applied to this earthborn material, sand, and a new profile and purpose is revealed, basically taking this elemental form and manipulating it to become these rippled figures and a sloped board to complete the set. I feel like that was definitely a key theme of these like tabletop games that we saw in really luxurious sort of versions. And what we loved here was, again, this sensorial boost that you got through this really coarse, elevated tactility with this particular set. And then we can move on to Jacqueline Baker. Their Instagram is Baker_Glassworks, if any of you are interested. Overall, from tiles to decorative objects and tech and beyond, as Kristen said earlier, we really saw an emphasis on the material of glass during Milan Design Week. And Jacqueline Baker was the designer that really stuck with me even after Milan Design Week wrapped. Halo, which is the name of the piece here, really explored our personal connection to color and how refracted light transforms space and emotion. So this beautiful diffused light was really designed to create a personal sanctuary. And if you're an FS client, you'll know that we are a big fan of stained glass over here, and we've even forecasted it in the previous season. So this sort of echoed light that Jacqueline Baker crafted was really worthy of note, and again, was shown at Isola Design Gallery. And then moving on to Atelier Ana Arpa, increasingly we're seeing more and more wearables presented at Salone, and Atelier Ana Arpa was at Salone Satellite space, which if you're unfamiliar, Salone Satellite is essentially their emerging talents sort of area. And they really showed a new take on woodworking. So what you got is these tessellated patterns that really spoke to us when they doubled as tabletops, adding that sort of decorative flair to a really functional piece. And then you also got some clutch handbags that were also made out of wood, which I've never seen done before. And then they were kind of surface treated with this really beautiful chrome, or just appearing really sort of primal, showing the natural grains of the wood. And then moving on to Blue Bus Studio, this lamp was really amazing to see in person. As you can see, the sort of spotlight here in terms of the shape is this really playfully rhythmic sort of motion that's almost captured there, and it's all achieved through 3D printing. Blue Bus Studio's focus is on designing, prototyping, and producing lamps in Poland with the idea to really promote Polish design. What is really great, actually, when I was kind of looking more into the brand, is that they use cornstarch polymer to manufacture these lamps, and therefore they're suitable for industrial composting. So as much as you get this really playful shape that I feel like would be gorgeous for any space to add that sense of personality, they also have this commitment to environmental responsibility there. So that was really great to see. I believe we have a couple of more emerging talents to share with you.
Yes, I wanted to call out the designer Tina Bobby because many of you have probably seen the picture on the left here. This is her AI coffee machine, and she has kind of gone viral for creating these insane pieces. But the piece on the right, she actually showcased our IRL. It's an actual coffee machine based on her designs. And I just think that she's such a cool example of how to utilize artificial intelligence and digital design to foster creativity and not hinder it, because it's really about basically allowing AI to let you dream and then making that dream actually come to life. So I really was excited to see it in person. Also just think she's a really cool visionary in that space. And then that brings me to this kind of group show that I stumbled upon where Tina Bobby's work was also featured, but it was called Dioron. And the whole theme of this show was elevating objects. So this collective brought together designers to create a really inspiring and immersive showcase. And there were so many discoveries that I made here that it was hard to kind of pull out all of them. But I wanted to name a couple of my favorite discoveries, starting on the left with daydreaming objects. So I was so entranced by these really gorgeous ethereal, I think they're made of wax or inspired by wax works. They really felt like a dream. They feel mushy, they look cloud-like, but also they emit such a soft and radiating glow. So I was really obsessed with that brand. The next is Pepita Design. So this is their glass chair. It's clearly inspired by the shape of a donut, but also the inflatability of life vest and kind of just this idea of evoking a sense of play and lightness without sacrificing functionality. Again, elevating everyday objects into something more fun, but also usable. The next is Roham Shemek, and this designer's manifestation chair was cast in what he calls a bold gold bronze, specifically to showcase at the show in Milan. And to me, this is so regal. Also, I wanted to note that we saw so much focus on the torso just as a design detail. So I wanted to point that out here. I love it as a detail on the back of the chair. I thought that was so cool. And then the last one, this project by the brand Tubes. So I think this exemplifies the expressive power of objects because this is actually a radiator design. So this is supposed to cover your radiators in your home. I wish it was covering my ugly pipes in my Brooklyn apartment. But it's really about kind of design that transforms the necessary utility piece into something beautiful and exciting. So I love the texture. I love the monochromatic color, kind of brings softness, dimension, but also just something interesting to that very necessary piece of infrastructure to your home. And then our final slice of today, which is also very exciting, are our activations that we saw. So we'll be diving into some of the activations. And I'll kick it off, which also Peter and Kristen can jump in because we all attended together. But this is the Marimekko and Lila Gohar collaboration. And this was we got to spend a lovely morning breakfast in bed. So this is their collaboration with the two designers and this incredible mixed stripe print that was designed by Maja Isola. So one of the main activation themes was just kind of all about theater and theatrics and just display and drama. And this is necessary because this was in an actual theater, but participants were encouraged and invited to lounge in this bed that took up the entire room. We had it was supposed to encourage conversation. We got to have a cute and cozy and fun way to start the morning. We can see our breakfast that we had in bed there, but this whole collection was a debut of this capsule collection of bedroom essentials from the two designers. It is launching later this year, but it will include these really fun duvet sets, pajamas, diaries, sleep mask, and a more essential sleepwear accessories. So we really love this. We love the pattern play. We just love the whole idea of kind of bringing this immersive experience to life. I don't know if you guys have anything to add to this one.
Absolutely. I've just seen Jennifer's comment saying looks like a fun slumber party, and it sure was. I feel like it
Totally.
was just such a clever way to get people to really see the beauty in the products through use, which I thought was really interesting, and really feel the materials, and even some of the uniforms that the Marimekko staff were wearing and some of the pajama items. It really put an emphasis on that state of relaxation and pajama dressing that we keep talking about, and I feel like it's definitely here to stay. And it was just a really beautiful morning getting to see all the new colors, and I'm sure it's by no mistake that some of us are wearing stripes today. So Marimekko clearly made an impact.
Yeah, I also think that there's other overarching theme that a lot of the activations we saw were meant to act as kind of a respite from the week. So it wasn't about going in and just seeing it. It was about, oh, you're coming in here, you're obviously seeing this beautiful design and we're showcasing you product, but we also want you to kind of use it as a way to relax and kind of get away from the chaos of the week. So I really appreciated that as well.
I feel like that was the perfect segue to our next mention here, which is we had the pleasure for a moment of pause during an eventful week at Georg Jensen's pop-up ice cream cafe. They were actually celebrating the brand's new silver collection that sort of reimagined classic ice cream and coffee serveware in sterling silver. And the visitors of this pop-up could enjoy gelato, affogato, and coffee in their new collection of sterling silverware. We loved the intentional curation. Well, first of all, we loved the gelato, but we also loved the intentional curation of the space, from the interiors to these niche gelato flavors down to a magazine that featured a Georg Jensen themed crossword puzzle in there, again highlighting those everyday rituals like your morning coffee or your afternoon ice cream break that really showcasing again the beauty of the silverware through its use. So this was a really nice pause during the week.
Yeah, it was really hard the rest of the week to eat gelato that wasn't served in sterling silver, but somehow we managed. All right, and the next one, this one is also very exciting. So this was one of my most anticipated activations because I loved Google's installation so much last year. So this year they partnered with the light and sound artist Lachlan Turskin to bring to life the concept of making the invisible visible. So the sculptures that you see here are created entirely by light, and the people that were working there, they all work at Google, they're all genius, but they were saying that the only reason that we can see kind of the sculpture, quote unquote, sculpture moving was action with particles in the air. So light is typically a fleeting and an immaterial material, but it was turned into something that was actually tangible and you could touch it and feel it and interact with it. So it was truly such a magical experience, which also I'll open up to you guys to talk to, but we loved how it was, you were able to kind of interact with it. You weren't feeling anything, but you could see it move. You became part of the structure. It was so beautiful. It was just, yeah, it was really impactful. And I also on the side have some examples of the Google products that they were launching and showcasing here. So also including this home Nest system that's able to mirror weather and conditions. Again, kind of speaking to that idea of making the invisible visible. And then even these ear cases, these earbuds. So what they did is they scanned probably like thousands of different actual ears. And obviously everything is very unique. Every ear is shaped very differently, but they took all of those points, kind of put it together and to create this one collective piece that is supposed to fit the most ears the most comfortably, and kind of creating design that works for everybody by kind of sourcing out to everyone. So I really loved that concept. We also got to have a really great conversation with one of the designers at Google. She was talking about kind of the process of working with like the feel of the product, also the color, but it's always just such a fun thing. But definitely this light installation was one of our favorite pieces, if you guys have anything to add.
I feel like you covered it perfectly, but it was just such a, again, kind of building on like the human theme of Milan Design Week. It was really great to see the consideration actually stem from how we as humans interact with space and product, whether it's through like the design of their new earphones or whether it was this amazing light installation. It really felt like it evoked something really human in us when we just got to really get quite playful and really like touch everything, experience the space. So definitely a key highlight of the week.
Right, and this next one, kind of also keeping with the idea of different sensorial experiences. So Stone Island worked with Friendly Pressure Studio One, and this is another huge trend that we've been tracking before, but also saw prominently during Milan. It's the rise of these listening spaces. So this was featured at the Capsule Show, and Stone Island had their own pop-up with this incredibly beautifully engineered sound system. So they had obviously the design and kind of showcasing their sound system, but during the week, they also had a rotation of different artists and DJs that were spinning sets in this room. So again, people could come by during the day, they could stop and like have a beer and relax and listen to music, kind of offering this kind of respite from the chaos of the week. So we love this. The sound system was incredible. And I think it's just a really good reflection of the brand, a good extension of the brand, who's obviously known for their outdoor and kind of their outerwear pieces that are so meticulously crafted, and kind of bringing that to this sound system was a really beautiful yeah.
So the last pot by Alessi was actually, oddly enough, one of my favorite exhibits that I got to attend. And this showcase brought together urns that were designed by 10 different designers, each offering a deeply personal and design-forward interpretation of an object that's pretty much treated with uniformity. It's kind of neglected in the design space. And what struck me most was the quiet reverence of the space itself. So it was actually set in a bookstore, and it invited contemplation, and it really helped redefine the way we view the final vessel that a person will encounter in their life. So the idea that this too can be beautiful, intentional, really felt incredibly powerful. And actually, as I stood there, they had this woman read aloud a poetic description of the collection. And in that moment, the exhibition really transcended design. It really became a reflection of memory and ritual, and it brought a lot of meaning to these pieces. And it really asked us to consider, why shouldn't this final object be just as special and expressive and human as all of the others that fill our lives throughout our lifetime? So really loved this. They even had one for pets, which I thought was cute too, but really interesting take on the urn. And then on an entirely different note, Casa Cork by David Rockwell was another standout moment. And it was really an exploration of material yet again. The entire space was imagined in cork. So from the flooring to the furniture and even the wallpaper, it really demonstrated the surprising range and beauty of this humble and sustainable material. So walking through this space really felt like entering a warm textural cocoon where cork was elevated beyond its typical uses and reinterpreted as something both luxurious and deeply grounded. So for me, it was a powerful reminder of just how far a single material can go when pushed creatively, and a prompt for all of us to rethink our approach to design and recyclable materials. So as we move forward, materials like cork should not be afterthoughts because they're actually incredibly versatile.
And then I think our final activation to speak to today is Highstobiety. So their annual Not Milan series this year spoke to the concept of classics reinvented as a celebration of design's enduring power, with timeless objects being reinterpreted or reimagined in a modern context, another clear overarching theme for the week. They also describe this exhibition as transforming the icons of the past and future into cultural artifacts, which I really loved. So some of the featured pieces here, I'm obsessed with that pasta bowl, reimagined in silver with the bow tie pasta shapes, incredibly cool. And then also this very chic bespoke petanque lane outside that we did, of course, have to test out. It illustrates the art of play. I also won't say who won, but we can all guess. So in addition to this exhibition, Highstobiety partnered with several iconic designers to create a limited edition series of merchandise, which is always a festival favorite. And those collaborations included the Attico, Fila, Barbasso, of course, Camper Lab, Levi's, and many, many more. But this was also just a really fun place to kind of go and hang out, see really cool design, but again, kind of get that hands-on experience by having the ability to play and kind of just talk amongst ourselves. So yeah, that concludes our wrap up. Thank you all for joining us. This was very fun and great to revisit the week.
Thank you, Hallie, Peter, and Kristen. Such a treat. We'll follow up with you all later this week with the deck so that you can dive into your own research on any of these activations or exhibitors from Milan Design Week. We will see you back here on Wednesday, June 4th for the next show and tell. Thanks everyone for joining us today. Have a great rest of your week. Bye.
Bye, everyone.